I'm going to show you how I make these easy, crunchy almond flour cookies. Cookies are super easy, and I love them because they're so easy to take with you when you need a snack because they're nice and crunchy. They don't get soggy if you put them in your bag or in a lunchbox or something like that. So they are great for traveling. Cookies are great if you are new to grain-free baking, SED diet, GAPS diet, paleo, just grain-free. These are very easy, but there are a couple of crucial steps, so please stay tuned. You do not want to skip these steps to get them to turn out perfect. All right, having my dry ingredients here to start, I have 2.5 cups of almond flour in the mixing bowl. I have 2 tablespoons of coconut flour here with a half teaspoon of baking soda and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Wet ingredients, there is a 1/2 cup of honey, a 1/4 cup of coconut oil, a 1/4 cup of cocoa butter that will be liquid soon, and a teaspoon of vanilla. Now you can substitute regular butter, unsalted butter for the coconut oil. That's really good if you want a more buttery flavor to your cookie. I just like to show the coconut oil because a lot of people ask me for dairy-free recipes. All right, I'm just going to quickly mix in the coconut flour, baking soda, and salt and get that mixed together, and then we're going to move on to our wet ingredients. So mix that together so it's ready when you pour those in, and then just set it aside for a minute. So I'm going to add my coconut oil, my cocoa butter, and the honey to a little saucepan here. And we're just going to melt these. So heat it over kind of medium-low heat until everything melts. So you're going to want to stir it a little bit as it's melting and keep an eye on it. Don't just walk away because you don't want this to overheat and burn. We don't want it to start to boil. We just need everything to be melted together. If it starts to bubble while everything's melting, but everything hasn't melted yet, just turn the heat down to low. It should be warm enough at that point to get everything melted. So we're pretty much ready here. The rest of those little pieces will melt in a few seconds here because it's warm. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn the heat off and we'll get it ready for our next step. All right, I'm just going to pour this mixture into this. Add your vanilla. Stir it a little bit, but we're actually going to use an electric mixer to combine this the rest of the way. That mixes it a lot better. I just don't want it to splash when I start my electric mixer. So I'm just going to mix that in a little bit so it's a little crumbly. So I'm just going to do this at medium speed until everything is more well combined. So you can see, so it's not going to form a dough yet. It's big crumbles. But what we're looking for with the mixer is that all the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients are well incorporated. And then we're going to use our hands to form it into our dough. So make sure you wash your hands and then we'll get started. All right, so I'm just going to use my hands to press everything together. You can see it's coming together very nicely. We're going to just make it first into one ball and then we're going to split it. So we got this first one going, just get everything all together into a ball. So you might have noticed that I did not preheat the oven before I started assembling the ingredients. That is because it is essential that you chill these cookies before you bake them. If you skip this step, you will get a thin and crispy all-one cookie on your baking sheet. So it's very crucial to chill them first. All right, so I have half of my dough here. I just split that ball into 2. And then we're just going to lay that on wax paper. And we are going to spread it out a little bit. We want it to be about 1 inch or so thick, but we're going to roll it up a little bit so it can get a little more tightly packed and round, a little more round. It won't be perfect, but that's good. And then we're just going to do the exact same thing with the other one. So I have both of these ready. I'm just going to refrigerate them for about 2 hours. They can go 2 hours to overnight. We need at least 2 hours in the fridge to get them nice and firm. Right, I've just got this out. It's been chilling for a little bit here, so it's been chilling for about 2.5 hours. And so I've got it out of the refrigerator, and I'm going to slice it. So this dough, because it needs to be firmed up, it doesn't roll out and make cutout cookies. So you're just going to have to do slices. We want them to be about 1/4 of an inch thick. Try to make them as uniform as you can. I've got a lined baking sheet here. I'm using a silicone liner, but you could use parchment paper as well. So just put these, they don't spread out a lot, but they will a little bit. So just leave a little space in between. I'm just doing one roll at a time so that it's just a little easier to manage. So leave your other one in the freezer until you are ready to start slicing it. Then you can go ahead with it. This cookie sheet's pretty big, but I don't have room for all of the cookies on one, so I'm just going to do one roll at a time. And you can see that they are very solid. It's almost like a marzipan, because it's made with the almonds, the ground almonds, which is how you make marzipan. So we have those on there. So I'm just going to bake them. I'm going to start out baking them for 8 minutes. They bake pretty quickly, but it's going to depend on the thickness. A couple of these are a little thicker. It's hard to get them perfect, but we're going to show you 8 minutes and then the next crucial step in getting these exactly perfect. While that first one was baking, I got a second sheet ready. I do recommend, if you have it, to do 2 separate sheets. It's better to put raw cookie dough on a cold pan than one that's already been heated, especially if you're not using the silicone pad. So these cookies are the very first time I've used silicone pads. Before, I always used parchment paper because the cookie sheets I had before, the ones you're seeing in this video for the first time, were not big enough. But I love these. I baked a batch of these just a few days ago, and they came out perfect on the silicone. So I really like the silicone, and the cookies are easy to get off of it. So I'm just going to pop these back into the freezer until my first batch is done. All right, I got these out of the oven at 8 minutes. We're just going to see if they are done enough. So one thing that's important about these cookies is that they will get crunchy after they cool down. So they will be a little soft when you get them out of the oven, but they shouldn't be too soft. So these ones, the thicker ones, are a little too soft. You can see it's leaving a big dent. So I'm just going to go back in. Sorry about that. My timer was telling me these were done again because I didn't turn it off. So 2 dented. I'm going to put them back in for a couple of minutes. So these are out of the oven. I did 2 more minutes, and what I'm looking for, if you can see that they are a little more browned around the edges, that's what we're looking for, in addition to seeing if they are a little more firm, which they are. So there's a little dent there, but you can see it's very soft and not deep like those other ones. Another thing very important about these cookies is that they are really soft when you get them out. You're not even going to believe that they're going to firm up like I showed you when I started the video, but they will. So one thing that's very important is that you let them cool for a couple minutes before you get them out of the pan, because they will crumble. See how that one is falling apart? So I sacrificed that one to show you, but just leave it sitting there for a couple of minutes, and then we'll take them off the pan. The other one I'm going to throw in the oven. That's why it's good to have 2 baking sheets prepared. Have these cooling down for a couple minutes. My other ones are in the oven, so I'm just going to very carefully test picking this up. See how the spatula slides underneath? That's what you want. Move it to your cooling rack. And you can see this is the one that kind of fell apart. I was able to push it back together before it cooled down. So I'm doing that. And then I have got my cooling rack right here. So I'm just going to take the cookies carefully off and move them to cool the rest of the way. See, you can see how nicely these are holding together. They're already firming up. and they will get crispy. They might stay a little softer if they're super thick like that one, but they actually get pretty crunchy no matter what. So if you want super crunchy cookies, you can cut them even thinner, but also you might want to start at 7 minutes for your cooking time. If you slice them very thin, if you want more of a cracker type of cookie. So these cookies are great. I use them as a base for my peanut butter patties, which you can find in my cookbook, Don't Skip Dessert, Volume 2. This cookie recipe is in there as well. And I used the similar one for a basis for my mint cookies, but I use mint extract. You can find that recipe in my cookbook as well. And like I said, I'm going to try these for a pie crust, so be sure to check back and see how that turned out. So, all right, so these are all on here cooling very nicely while the other ones bake. And we will be back to see them a little bit later when they have gotten even crunchier and cooled down all the way. Second batch is out of the oven, so let's take a look at how the first batch is doing as it was cooling down. All right, so these are cool. They won't get quite as super crunchy as they do when you freeze them, which is my favorite texture for them, but you can see it's hard, breaks apart, perfection, perfect. These cookies are best if you keep them in the freezer. It gives them the perfect crunchy texture. So these have been frozen for a little while, so could you hear that crunch? So it gives that nice crunchy sugar cookie texture. And these are great just on their own, but also we'll use them in some other recipes. So you can find those other recipes on my website. And I'm going to try it in a pie crust. So stay tuned. That video is coming up. Hope you enjoy this recipe, and let me know in the comments what's your favorite kind of cookie.